it was like, well, I mean, I'm jumping ahead, but I really appreciated like, well, for one, like it gave me that drive to focus my energy that was being like, I was everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I was determined, to graduate and then to leave after, graduation, and then off to, basic training and AIT, they're at glorious Fort Benning, Georgia. And, and, and then, right into airborne school. And it was just, showing up at Fort Bragg, which is where I still am, at the end of like 2002, like I didn't know anything. I still don't, but I definitely didn't back then. Like it was like a different, I don't know, I was a boy, 18 years old, still wet behind the ears. And like, but man, like made of rubber, could do anything. And I was like, this isn't hard. Well, this guy's yelling at me. That doesn't, I don't like that, but whatever. They're paying me. But the biggest part of it was like that family, like that brother, mm-hmm. People say brotherhood, but it's really, throughout my whole career, like I've wanted to basically throughout my career, like I've wanted to challenge myself to be better. I say be better in the Army sense.
Sure.
And some of that does have an effect on you as a person physically, mm-hmm. or, your intelligence or your training, but I think I was also like, taking that journey of like never feeling like I was doing enough, whether it be through being at the 82nd as infantryman, and then, which boy, that was really funny. I got some stories because that was back when the old World War II barracks were still there, and you could smoke in the barracks still, and like everyone in my platoon smoked cigarettes, and I was like,
okay, so hold on a second, Cal. I got to stop you. So when we talk about these old World War II barracks,
yes,
okay.
Yeah,
which ones? Yeah.
Were these buildings made of wood or made of concrete?
They were made of. I'm sure there's wood in there, but concrete. Come on, man.
Those are listen. I got to stop you, buddy. Right? Those are not the World War II barracks.
All right.
Those were the barracks that me and Mark stayed in.
Yeah. And you're right. They're not there anymore.
Yeah.
The ones by Pike Field. Those are
the ones by Pike Field. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've been in those too. For SF pipeline stuff. Anyways, but no, the concrete buildings.
Nothing wrong with those. They should have never been torn down. Nothing wrong with those buildings.
God. Man, the things that happen in those barracks, dude.
Hey, we're not talking about what happens in the barracks, right? Yeah. That's a whole nother sidebar. We could have a whole show.
We could do another show
on the debacles that go on in the barracks, right?
Man, but it really is like I became the person that I am in that space, or at mm-hmm. least started to figure out who I am as a young man.
Sure.
I was all over the place, but I had a mission, right? And mm-hmm. it was it was great, but I deployed to Iraq, not during the invasion, but like 2 months after. So it was like July of 2003.
Okay.
So 325 is the brigade that went during the invasion, I think, from mm-hmm. 82nd, and then I was in 3505, so 3 Panther.
Damn.
3 H minus, dude.
Hey, dude, don't be talking no H. We're in 1505, so we're all about
the Panthers. All right, man. Hell yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Man. It was interesting because none of us knew whether I was Private Morgan or Sergeant so and so or mm-hmm. First Sergeant so and so. No one knew what the hell was going on. It was everyone was just figuring stuff out. We were like putting rocks and sand in MRE boxes and cargo strapping them as like armor in the back of our Humvees, cargo Humvees or whatever. And like, mm-hmm. I'm back there just like, let's get some, whatever. Like I'm here to bring, bring freedom. And I didn't know, man. It was just really funny. And, I'm not trying to make light of war, I guess, but no, to be 18 years old. Yeah, I think I was still 18 when I was there, I had just turned 19, I think.
It's the experience of, right? So the 82nd's got an interesting way of doing business, right? Me and Mark, we've both been there.
The airborne timeline.
Yeah, you know, we are. So for us, like we're Desert Storm. We're Desert Storm paratroopers, right? You might read about that in the history books, or you might have.
I think I've heard of Desert Storm. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Wasn't it like 3 days or something?
Whoa, bite your tongue, son. We were there. We were the initial line in the sand, but I'm digressing. The thing is, what you find, and this is the curious part. I'd like to know, how long did it take, or your experiences in the 82nd, before you're like, hey man, I gotta like do something else?
Oh man, it was like, honestly, it was coming back from that trip. Like, I got back from that trip and I was like, please, I need to find something. Like, there's gotta be, I know there's more out there. And I think I experienced a little bit of, I didn't know what the hell was going on at all. Right. So, but I'm like, who are those guys? Who are those guys? You know, as we're in Iraq, and I'm like, why do they look like, why are they dressed like that? Like, I'm over here, like either a high and tight or shave your head. And I was like, okay, like every week. And I'm like, aren't we at war here? Like, what's going on? And, you know, I'm like, Roger that, Sergeant or whomever. And, you know, but I think I was able, we did a lot of cool things. I say cool, but for me at that age, they really were. And, you know, but I wasn't satisfied. Right. So I was like, I can do more. And, you know, I think right after I got back, I went to like pre-ranger. Right. So I went to pre-ranger. The 82nd has their own pre-ranger course. And, you know, I did I did that. And, I think I got second on the OML for the whole division as a PFC or something. And, that was a huge deal. And I was like determined to go. And, you know, I left right after that. I guess in between is when I met my wife, and it was either in between pre-ranger or either way. It was like right after that trip, met my wife, went to pre-ranger, and then went to ranger school. And that's a funny kind of story too, because I was 19 in the club drinking with a fake ID. Don't condone that. And, and like, that's, you know, I met her and the sweetest lady, but I mean, she's, you know, I won't say how much older. She's a little bit older than me. And it was just like one of those things, man, where we met and like talked, and, you know, the night walked her to her hotel or whatever, and said goodbye. But before I said goodbye, I was like, hey, do you know, I gotta tell you something. Like, how old do you think I am? And she's like, I don't know, like 21, 22. I think she was 25 at the time. I was like, I'm 19. And I'm in the military, so hopefully that's not an issue, but I really like you. And she ghosted me. Like, and I still give her shit about this, but like she, I mean, I get it, right? Stay away from the military. She was, you know, from Western North Carolina, like out towards Charlotte, and this was in Myrtle Beach, you know, so they were there for a friend's birthday or something. And I actually invited her to there was the military ball thing, right? What are those called? Yeah, ball. Yeah. And I was like, oh, there's this thing. I really want you to be my date. And not that night. I didn't do that night. I wasn't like, come with me to this thing. It was like the following weekend or whatever. But, you know, I threw the invite out, and then she ghosted me. Well, you know, so I was like, all right, well, I guess that was that then. And I went to ranger school, and I took the only route you can, straight through. That was a little plug too. But no, I'm so thankful that I went straight through, because I would not.
How was Dugway?
How was what? Oh, come on,
Dugway.
Man. Desert phase, dude. Hey, I got a joke real quick. You know how many rangers it takes to screw in a light bulb?
The answer varies, but let's hear yours.
Okay, 10. And I figured this out, but 10, 9 to talk about how hard it was when they did it, and 1 to actually do it. And 1 to actually do it. So, but like, you know, coming back from that, I had the old flip phone, Nokia or whatever it was. And I had a voicemail on there, and, you know, and one was from her, and she's like, "Hey, I was just thinking about you, and like, just want to make sure you're doing okay." And either way, like after that, we started dating, and, you know, like a good young, well, now E4, because they gave me that from graduating. They're like, "You're an E4 now, bud." I was like, "Thanks. What do I get to do? Carry this saw." Okay, sweet.
Man, a tab spec 4 carrying the saw, Sarge.
Yeah, no, because my E5 team leader was a Ranger qualified dude too.
Okay, but what about the rest of the minions in the squad, man?
I wanted the saw.
Okay.
There was. I said that kind of joking.
You made it sound like, here's the saw. I'd be
like, yeah.
But that's cool. If you wanted it, hey man, I got it. You want to carry that thing? Burn some people down with it? Hey man.
Yes, freedom. No, I think, but pretty quickly I went from there to the battalion scouts.
Okay.
Like right after that, they recruited me over there, and that's really where I got a flavor for, you know, jumping in before the battalion jumps in, or the whole like mass tack where it's, you know, that, right? That's that's like amazing. And at night, and you it's chaos, but wow, I just had a flashback of one of those. But yeah, just being online after the mission, you know, 10 hours later, looking for people and equipment, like online abreast across like Holland DZ or Sicily or whatever, with our rucksacks on. And if we didn't find it, like you're running back, we're marching back instead of getting on the trucks or whatever. And it's like, okay, somebody's asleep in the freaking corner over there. Like, come on. But squirrel, what happened? Where was I going with that? So like, the scouts thing, like jumping in early, you know, and doing the reconnaissance piece. Like I was like, man, this is kind of cool, you know, and it's lower stress, like smaller team. And that's where I got a little bit of that flavor, and not even really knowing much about special forces. I was like, I think there was a pamphlet or something, or a recruiter brief or something. I don't know, but like, I just did whatever I needed to do to sign up. And I was like, let's do this. I want to do that. And, man, talking about doing that, like it's crazy though, when you start to try to make that transition to try to go to this special forces selection from being enlisted or prior service, like depending on the support, like I didn't really have much support in that sense. Like it was like, all right, well, don't not make it, because we had plans for you, you know?
Oh yeah.
And, but the reality was, you know, I made it and then started that, that timeline, you know, so that was, I think, January of 2006 when I went to SFAS.
Okay.
And yeah. And that's when I really, you know, started to fall in love with what I was doing, you know, in the military. And, almost like it was love it too much, you know, it's like, it was just so like interesting, all the different, opening your eyes to thinking outside the box. Right. And, yeah, that's really where I started to develop it. But I mean, you know, going through the Q course, you know, I was an 18 Echo. I went through the, you know, the communication sergeant course, and no one would have thought that. Everyone thinks that I was like an 18 Bravo, and I don't get it, but I was an 18 Echo. And, you know, I went to a, you know, Spanish was my language. You know, I'm actually, my grandmother's from Cuba anyways, but like she didn't teach us Spanish, but learning it in the military, it was, you know, and my wife is fluent, you know, in Spanish as well. She's Puerto Rican, and yeah, it was what I wanted to do. And then to go to 7th group, you know, I had heard the, you know, the stories, right? Or you hear about like, oh, the new commo guys, new 18 Echoes that get there, they're not going to go straight to a team. They're making them go to SIGDET or battalion, whatever, to get that experience, which is great, but just not for me. So what does this guy do? Before I even signed into 7th group, like I went and talked to actually it was Brian Rary. He was the company sergeant major, but as I was going through pre-scuba, because I went to pre-scuba in the Q course, and then I went to dive school en route to 7th group. So to CDQC, and he was like, someone set up a meeting and he's like, yeah, if you make it through, you know, I'll bring you over to the company and put you on the dive team. And I was like, cool. And then I just had to make it through that, you know, no big deal. And it was like awful. it was horrible, but Key West is beautiful. But I've never been so afraid of a pool. Like I'd be staring at did I?
Yeah.
No, I mean, no, I didn't, but I watched.
Well, yeah.
Like when I was waiting to do the one man, like, you know, you're sitting there in your UDTs and just like playing in your own piss. It's like, it reminded me of SEER school. I was like, oh, and you just hear all this noise going on behind you. You can't look or whatever. It's like, oh my God, don't look. But like all this shuffling and commotion, and they freaking dragged this dude. They picked this one student out of the water and he's purple. And I was like, oh shit, he's dead. And nope, they put him on 100% O2 and gave him 10 minutes and said, you can retest if you'd like. And I was like, all right. And they're like, Kyle, you're next. And I was like, fuck me. What is about to happen? So it's a really like challenging school, but I did have a lot of fun learning the dive stuff. And then, you know, the military does know how to take the fun out of recreational things.
Everything.
You know, yeah. Things that would be fun recreationally. They're like
scuba diving, skydiving.
Yeah. Climbing.
Yeah.
Like,
climbing.
It's like, okay, let's make this as hard as possible. And I get it. Right. I get it to a point, you know, but yeah, so I've always tried to like jockey myself, like not control my fate, but like do what I can to be as proactive about, you know, getting into the fight, you know, and onto a good team, or, you know, and not that I knew that being on that dive team was going to be, you know, a great team. I just knew that like that was a way for me to get onto a team, and I wanted to, and I had heard that being on a dive team and you know, SF companies, and this remains to be unseen, because I think all the teams bring different, you know, it's all personalities, it's all different not missions, but you know, the different infill techniques or training sets, but you know, at its core, it's still an ODA, right? It's just an infill mechanism of infill. So and I did get to the team. I know the battalion CSM was pissed off, and because when I showed up, he's like, come here, Sergeant Morgan. And I was like, oh, what? And he like reads me this like, oh, you think you're cool, huh? You're gonna go ahead and have, you know, I got my eye on you. I got my eye on you, because apparently, you know, the company sergeant major, which eventually became like the group CSM, you know, Brian Rary, and which is a phenomenal human being, and brought me over. He kept his word and brought me over, and I was on, I'll say this correctly, but I was placed on 745.
Okay.
Or 7215.
I don't know these 4-digit numbers you speak of.
Yes, you do.
No.
Yeah. So it was great, man. And, you know, I got to do some pretty cool stuff while I was there, and different, you know, deployments. You know, I got to deploy to South America, to Colombia, and do like the, you know, FID / or JSET, not necessarily FID, but it was a training the Lanceros in the BACOA, you know, the Battalion de Commandos.
Yep.
And for you Espanol speakers, I think that was a really cool experience, man, because it was like, but it wasn't my first. Actually, it was my first deployment into, you know, from group. I think it was to Colombia. So I got to see that side, which was so different than anything, you know, I had experienced. And but more in line with like Robin Sage and like, you know, like training a partner force and things like that, you know. And then my next couple trips were to Afghanistan, and those were completely different types of trips. Like one of them, I think I was training the commandos, like the 3rd Commando Kandak out of Kandahar. And, you know, it was more of a direct action, you know, type mission. And, which was really cool. And, to be able to do that. And then the other one, like that I'm like, was a very, very hard trip for me, but it was like with, the village stability operations where we went into, you know, basically there was a FLOT, right? Or not a FLOT, but a FLOT, forward line trace. And, the Taliban were across the river, you know, or the Helmand River, and they basically kicked out a whole village, and then like dammed up the irrigation canals, and like they were running dug like bunkers into this thing, and we're like wheelbarrow and dishkas down the freaking the trench there, and like and then booby trapping everything, like and that's actually where, you know, not until we got so we were in firefights like every single day. It was like, all right, I'm gonna get up, and I would do like stand to sometimes, and like, you know, I was like, you know what, instead of them firing first today, I'm just gonna initiate this whole thing. And I would just like I like orchestrated it in like Ranger panties and my flip-flops, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna hang a few rounds in the 60 millimeter and the 81, and then, you know, because we had TRPs out there, and it was like, okay, cool, see if we can draw them out a little bit. And we had the different, you know, fighting positions up on the higher areas of the walls. And you know, I had went to Sodic before that trip, so I was like, I'm gonna get it on with this 300 Win Mag. And I was like, I need a spotter. And I was on a team, and I was like, where's my sniper buddy? It was like me, you know, because I was the only sniper qualified dude. But I was, you know, it was an interesting trip, man. Like hanging rounds, sending, basically exchanging fire every day. And anytime we moved, we like over a certain crest. Like I remember one of the guys that was on my team, he was a new guy, and his name is actually Ryan Hendrickson, and he's out now, and he wrote a book called Tip of the Spear. And it was he had an interesting like career up to that point, because I think he was in the Navy and the Air Force before, and then, you know, the Army. But he it was his first trip, and like or his first firefight, basically. Like one of the rounds from, it had to be a Dishka, but like smacked the windshield of it was the RG, or we had to go out there in RGs, like or else we were going to get stitched up. And it smacked that window, shattered it right in front of the driver's seat. And he like, we pull into where we're going, he like gets out, like just walks off into wherever, to whatever partner force dude that was there, and was like, let me get a cigarette, and just starts smoking a cigarette. And I was like dying laughing. And you know, he has a big heart, man. And just like you could see it, you know, every day out there, he's always really positive and just like, let's do it. Yeah. And but that was the rotation. So when we got the resources, we actually did like a Zodiac river crossing at night, or early morning, under the cover of darkness. We crossed the river with you know, everything that we could, to be able to go into that village and take it over. But we knew once we did that, like, we're gonna have to stay there and and hold it, right? Because no one had, this was the Chutu Valley, and no one had, it was between Firebase Tice and Cobra, and like Americans had done, you know, direct action hits into this area in the past, but no one had ever stayed. So like, that's why the locals were like, what in the hell are y'all doing? You know, this village was completely cleared out, but the neighboring village was like where the Malik, not Malik, but the mayor. can't remember, but yeah. So like, he's like, yeah, we don't trust y'all, man. Cause y'all aren't going to stay here. This is crazy. There's no way y'all are staying here. I'm like, yeah, no, we're staying here. But before we got to that point, that's when, we had intel, through our own sources that they were booby trapping the doorways, with IEDs. And so we were like, all right, we're not going to go through the doorways. We're going to either go up and over the walls or blow holes through the walls, right? And make our own door. And, and we had a plan to try to keep it and do it as deliberate as we could under the cover of darkness. But Ryan, I think that the terp that was with his element, cause it was basically two of us from each element, and then a squad of whoever our partner force was. And we spread out across this thing, and had our own areas to clear. And, Ryan was, I think, the next element over from me. And then, we were pretty far spread out, but, so he goes to pull this terp from the doorway. And when he did that, he set off the pressure plate because it was weighted, the crush plate or whatever, like
crush
it
bar.
it was weighted for, a heavier person. And that's how they use it, cause they know that we weigh more with kit on and all that. So, and it was one of those like silences though, cause nothing was said over the radio. And it was just like, what the hell what's going on? And then you just heard him scream. I heard him screaming, like not over the radio, but like from the distance. And it was the situation where it was like, I went to go start running over there and I stopped myself because I'm like, I'm going to like step on one myself. So we had our ways to clear it, the mine detector thing. And so it took more time than I wanted, but by the time I got over to him, like, his leg from the knee down was hanging on by like skin, like just the skin. So I was like, and he hadn't had it, but well, by the time when I got there, the 18 Fox had got there and was applying a tourniquet onto his leg. And the team sergeant was the one with him when it happened and was taking the damn tourniquet out of the plastic still, or couldn't figure out how to take it out of the plastic. And I was like, what in the hell are you doing? But basically it's like, get out of the way. And like between the medic, me and the other guy, like we packaged him up and we got him out of there. And there's a lot of things like we didn't have a litter. So like I remember like who's got something. So we used a whoopee and that ripped apart like pretty quickly. But we ended up splinting his leg with his rifle, like the buttstock of his rifle back together and line as best that we could. But that when the whoopee ripped, it was like, all right. So I just basically was like, all right, man, I'm going to carry you. And, I just put him over my shoulders and ended up like, basically carrying him the rest of the way because the helo wouldn't come in. They were like, no, like they wouldn't come any closer. So it was at least a K away or whatever. And Ryan's not little, he's heavy. Yeah. And, it's just, we did it deliberately and we got him to the I put him on the helicopter and then, said goodbye to him, man. And, I just really, was hoping that he would be okay. And he had lost a lot of blood and that's a very, hard place to be. Cause then you got to stay in the fight, and stay engaged and continue the mission. But, I'm going to talk about that story with Ryan. He mentions me in his book. He just says Kyle when he referenced me, but like, so Friday I'm going to go live with him on Instagram and him and I are just going to bullshit, man. And
nice.
And be able to talk about like, talk about where we met, kind of, that a little bit about the story for the people that have read his book and then kind of what we're trying to do in life now, and it's just, I'm really proud of him, man, for making, because I think he was one of the first people or one of the first to do like a part of the like the limb salvage like program. They reattached his leg and rerouted what all this stuff to.
Wow.
Amazing. Like,
yeah.
And his recovery is amazing. And he went back to an ODA, and I think he redeployed like 3 more times, you know.
Amazing.
When's that live going to be, Kyle?
It'll be this Friday at 7 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. So he did a post on
that's the 11th, I guess, right? The 11th.
Yeah. Yep. The
okay.
11th,
Friday the 11th. At what time again?
Eastern, 7 p.m. Eastern. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So
good.
Yeah. So just kind of, he did a little bit of like, he did promoting it, you know, beforehand, and hopefully we get some people that listen. But bottom line is that we're just gonna, you know, in a public forum, like be ourselves and talk about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Really proud of him, man, because I know that recovery and through my own recovery, like, you know, whether it be a physical or psychological wound, like you can feel like really alone, man. And your sense of purpose, it feels like it was taken away from you, you know, especially in a situation like that. Like, are you going to walk again, you know, like normal? And, you know, are you going to be alive for one? But like, you know, they said that like getting that tourniquet on his leg and stopping that bleeding, like saved his life, because he had lost a lot of blood. There was a lot of time that had elapsed, you know, and, you know, the whole like, you know, massive hemorrhaging wound. That's why it's the first, you know, in the March, whatever, you know, sequence, whatever it is now. I don't know what the term is, but
I think it's still March.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's amazing story. Couldn't be more proud to know the guy and seeing what he's doing, and really like, you know, what it's grounded in, you know, and there's a lot of parallels between like what I want to do and what he's doing and trying to do, and I support it.